So I've been like super self-conscious about what I look like on camera, but I didn't know that you didn't care.
I didn't care today because I thought, why have I been caring when we're not even doing the videos? But
And yet, look at your hair, and you look so nice. What are you talking about?
look at my hair.
Yeah, your hair looks like freaking styled. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm about to fall asleep. But it's not because you're not interesting. It's because I slept 4 hours last night.
Why did you only
Okay.
sleep 4 hours last night?
I don't know. I had to get up super early for a meeting. I was up late.
That's so bad. I slept last night more than I normally do.
You know how tired, like when you feel tired, you feel like, you know better than anybody what it feels like to feel tired and not good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see here.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mariah Effect podcast. I'm Mariah.
And I'm Jason.
And here we are. New week, new us. Jason is back and ready to record, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
although
how was your...
not at the home studio, but we'll do what we can.
Ooh, mysterious.
Yeah.
How has your time away from home been?
Good. I went to the beach. I went to a wedding in Asheville, North Carolina. I went to Washington, D.C. Now I'm in California. Been on the road.
I can't help but when I think of Washington, D.C., just think of Hamilton, but that's because I'm musical theater mind, of course.
You just made you just alluded to Hamilton before we jumped on the call. And
I know, that's why I said it now.
You said you weren't going to go full Hamilton. I thought that was so funny.
Well, yeah, because, like, Hamilton is the protagonist of the story, but he's kind of unfavorable by the end. Not that I'm, having wild, salacious affairs and
Writing
not
about
willing
it.
to share it with my wife before I write about it. But no, yeah, we were talking about that because I was talking about dealing with like all sorts of medical stuff and trying to figure out what to share, what not to share. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
speaking of like travels, I mean, while I was traveling, you've been doing your own sort of travels through all of that. Why don't you tell us about it?
Travel through emotional crap Sunday. I'm just kidding. I did a poll, by the way, and people said that they liked the crap storm Sunday way better than the stress cake.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't particularly like either, but let's do it.
You've been outvoted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been dealing, I talked about it on a couple episodes ago when I was solo, and talking about just how I had decisions that need to be made and like the pressure that comes with making decisions about your medical well-being. I have come to a decision. Basically, I was trying to decide whether or not to continue with chemotherapy just because chemotherapy has been causing so many issues with my health, just because of my lupus, my autoimmune disease. And it's just kind of complicated with all of that stuff because lupus is something that flares up when I'm stressed out. It's something that flares up when I get sick easily, like I've talked about it before. And so with chemotherapy, like that's basically something that's put in your body to kill the cancer, but in doing so, it kills you a little bit too. And my lupus is kind of like not understanding how to deal with that and ends up hurting me even more. So, I have made the decision to stop doing chemo and going with some other options. There's some clinical trials that I'm looking into and some, different ways of like habits. There's been some people who've reached out to me and told me about some health things or diet things that I could do that have been beneficial for other people in their lives. And so I'm kind of on that road and looking into that sort of thing. Nothing is definite for sure, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to be doing chemotherapy right now. I've also been put onto the transplant list, which is good because it just means that if I do that, then I can do the transplant along with chemotherapy, which will be a lot easier to manage because it'll be giving me healthy blood and like the healthy cells instead of what I have right now, which are not healthy. Yeah, so that's the decision I was trying to struggle with and work through and doing it while Jason was traveling. But I've made that decision and I'll talk about some things that I'm changing in my diet and things like that as I do it, but that's the road that I've taken.
Well, we've talked a lot about it, and so you've shared with me more some of your thought processes and all that goes into it. Like one of the things that you talked to me about that felt really true was just wanting to like live fully, in your best health now. And I don't know if you wanted to like, you can share that or not, but I just thought that was so true. Like amidst everything, I thought that was like a really important decision point for you.
Yeah, I feel like, and this is not me in any way saying that it is not the option for anyone. Like, I'm specifically talking about my journey and how I feel for myself. I don't want anybody to ever listen to something that I have to say and think like, that that's the only way to do something, because I think that's something a lot of people do these days. But, I just want to be clear that this is me talking about myself. But with chemotherapy, it just is so difficult to do anything when you are doing chemotherapy. Like the fact that I've been able to do this podcast while I've been doing it has been like truly a miracle, because I do the chemotherapy, I have the session, I come home and I'm just drained of energy. Any energy I have, I use to throw up. I use to like try and eat something so that I'm not just fully like empty in my body. I don't get out of bed, which causes a bunch of like problems in itself, to never leave your bed or to never like get up and exercise and walk around. And it just like takes away so much of your ability to move your body that it takes away a lot of options, like being able to go out to a concert or something. Like, am I going to be able to walk down the stairs to go to my seat? Am I going to be able to get out of there? Like, regardless of having the wheelchair situation, like, I'm not strong enough to wheel myself anywhere, so I have to have somebody with me who's willing to wheel me, which, not that there's not somebody that's willing to do that. It just feels like such a hassle, and I'm the type of person that doesn't want to put hassle on anybody just so that I can enjoy having a good time, just so that I can live my life the way that I want to live. And I just think that it's been going on for so long, for so many months, that I am tired of doing that, and I want to continue to fight for my life, but I want to do it in a way that still lets me live while I'm doing it. And I just think that that's not chemotherapy right now.
Yeah. And in this, we've talked a little bit about like what's important to you now. So you mentioned diet and things like that, but there was some other stuff you listed, like you're going to explore some options, but then there's also just like things you want to prioritize because you'll have more energy, right? Without the chemo.
Yeah.
Like what do you imagine prioritizing now?
I think that I've always had issues with, exercise and things like that. And so I think that being able to have the time and being able to live in a place where, outside isn't like boiling hot like LA. I feel like being able to focus on my physical self, I guess you could say. I don't know what people say for it. But being able to focus on like my physical self, being able to meditate, do more meditations, and listening to what my body needs, the diet, exercise. I used to really I loved living on the coast because I love the ocean, and with that I love swimming. So I don't know, maybe I could get more into swimming, at like the gym or a swimming pool or whatever, and use that as a way to kind of get some exercise. I don't know. I just need to find ways to be able to not push my body too hard, but also move around and, do things I love to do. I was talking to Mallory's brother, Lucas, and he wants to go to I forgot what it's called. Laguna, maybe? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's an amusement park that's here in Utah. And the last time we went was kind of my indicator that I was sick, that there was something wrong. But I had so much fun that day with Lucas, even though I was so tired and so like bleh, the entire time. Like if I work myself up a little bit, like kind of strengthen some of the things that are more weak right now, then I think that I would be able to go with him and be a little bit less tired. And also I'm not opposed to bringing, the walker that I have and taking that with me so that I still am walking on my own, but like not putting too much stress on my body. So I'm still getting exercise. It's just kind of like a modified version or whatever they say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I'm more focused on.
What can all of us do to help you or support you?
I think that one of the hardest parts of sharing so much of my life online has been people, bless you, all of you. But people reaching out to me and giving me their opinion on what they think I should do, or how they think I should do something, or what helped them, or the person that they know that they want to get me in contact with. And of course, like, there's exceptions to this of people that I've gone out of my way to ask for help. But I think the best thing you can do is just like words of encouragement rather than advice, because I already have so many people, doctors and people that I confide in right now, that are telling me their thoughts and opinions and like ways to help and all that stuff. So the best thing for me right now, because it can get really overwhelming when I have 100 or more people telling me their thoughts, would be just words of encouragement. Like, a simple like, I believe in you, or you can do this, because I have a really hard time with thinking that I can do things in general. So those sorts of things are really helpful. And only if you mean it, but that is more helpful than advice for me.
It's great that you know that. You know what you should do? I'm just kidding.
You see how like it didn't register to me that you're making a joke, because you're one of the people that I like confide in, and so when you give me advice it's a little bit different, but that was funny. That was good.
I actually have an idea of what you should do. I think you should tell us what is on your mind this week.
Oh, you know, I like, aside from all of this complicated chemo, doctor, medical decision making things, I have probably cried or laughed or felt like serious, emotional, whatever, only a few other times with like family and stuff, but a majority of the time either reading a book that I shouldn't be reading, or watching Steven Universe, a children's show.
I love that you love a variety of creations.
And I can't claim, you know, finding this on my own. We've talked about before how we watched, how I've watched Fruits Basket. I was like showing it to Mac because it's one of my favorite animes. And so once that was finished, because it's only 3 seasons, my partner Mac was like, okay, we're going to watch something that I want to watch. And I said, okay, that's fine. And Max said, okay, we're going to watch Steven Universe. And I said, okay, what's that? And they said, a children's show on Cartoon Network. And I said, okay, sure. And we start watching the show, and it just completely blew my mind away. Like the first few episodes, I was a little bit like, what have I gotten myself into? But after a while, like, I started to see the complexities that are in the show, and it really called out to the reason why I enjoy art and media and things like that, is because I like finding things that I can relate to so I don't feel alone. And there are so many emotions that are talked about on the show that are things that everyone feels at one time or another, and it's not in this like kid way or anything like that. It's like a real genuine way, and it just kind of blew my mind.
Well, you said you wanted to talk about Steven Universe and that it was a kid's cartoon, and I was sort of like, all right, that's what you want to do, you're the boss, right? But then I Googled it, and here's this like Rolling Stone article, and the title is "The Radical Kindness of Steven Universe and Why the Animated Series is the Fantasy Superhero Story We All Need Right Now."
Yeah.
Why is it the fantasy superhero story we all need right now?
Well, like, just like a quick understanding of the show, it's got this main character, the titular character, Steven Universe, who is just this little, it gives me the same vibes of Fruits Basket, in that the main character is just this little ball of sunshine and happiness and kindness that goes around and finds people who are weighted down by emotion or weighted down by obligation, or, you know, who they think they should be. And Steven goes, you know, you could be whoever you want to be. And these are things that you could like accept into your life that'll make it, you know, not just so serious or so complicated. It doesn't have to be so complicated, and changes their life. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the things that I love about it. And I think that's why that article is labeled, what did you say, Radical Kindness?
Yeah.
It tackles some serious, like, human emotions like no other kids show I think I've ever watched. And it is so good in teaching like how to handle certain emotions and how to handle certain situations, and it does so in such a beautiful way that is represented over the course of the entire show, the entire plot. So it's good at teaching kids how to, you know, pay attention to something for longer than a short like little episode, because it matters throughout a plot line. So it starts to get kids used to an idea of like, you know, things not just being a 10-minute, 15-minute episode of something and then that's it for the storyline. Like they actually apply over time, like a real adult TV show does. So I think that that's one of the things about it I like too.
This piece around kids and entertainment, why is that important to you?
I just think, you know, like I myself am not a parent, but I think that in a lot of ways I've been a guardian or a caretaker for a lot of kids in my life. Kids need something to teach them how to interact, how to have relationships in general, not just with their parents, not just with their friends, but also with themselves and their own emotions. And I think that a lot of parents have in the past and today have a hard time teaching those things because they were never taught those things in a mature way. And this show is so good at doing that it speaks to me, because I think there are so many instances where we are quick to judge other people and judge how somebody does something, but this is a way for kids to learn those things and be able to teach their parents in a way that's kind and caring. And that in itself changes those relationships and changes how we react with each other, which changes everything, everywhere, all at once. No, I'm just kidding. That's another movie.
Magically. Well, it's funny. You talking about that reminds me of a couple years ago when Vin, Jenny's son, was younger, my sister's son, so my nephew. I was visiting for Christmas, and he had a cartoon on with Duke Kaboom. I think, is that Toy Story? I don't know which character. Duke Kaboom was a character in a movie, and Vin was on the floor imitating this character, like riding his little like tricycle, doing the same move that Duke Kaboom did, and it was so funny. And I'll send you the video because you'll like it. But I remember thinking at that time, like, wow, like we absorb so much when we're little. We learn and emulate so much, and wouldn't it be cool if kids were learning and emulating things that were helpful?
Yeah, I think and like one of the things that I've realized when I was, especially in like the later years of high school, when my little brother was getting to an age where he was starting to watch television, like he was only 3 or 4 maybe, but he was starting to watch kid shows and things like that. And one of the kid shows that, and I don't want to hate on it necessarily, but I do want to say that I don't like the show, and if you do, then that's okay. But he was watching the show called Caillou, and the song, very cute and catchy song. I would find myself singing it all the time. But I feel like that show shows this kid who, and this is a theme with a lot of kids shows, is it shows this kid who reacts and behaves poorly and then goes through this like emotional whatever and realizes that what they did was wrong. And at the end of the episode, they're like, okay, that was wrong. And then the next episode, they react in a similar fashion about something else. And it happens over and over and over again, to the point where I feel like the point of the show is to teach kids, you know, oh, this is a bad behavior, don't do that, or this is a bad way of acting, don't do that. But then shows another episode where the character does the same thing again. And it's like the character never learns the lesson long term. It's just in that short term episode, they learn the episode. And so it teaches kids that, like, oh, okay, to act this way in this situation was bad for Caillou, but he's acting this way again. And I'm not saying that these kids are having these complex, like, thoughts, but at the same time, kids learn so much more and take in so much more than I think people give them credit for. And I think that the way that that show in particular, and many shows like it, just sets these kids up to think that it doesn't matter because he just does the same things over again. So it's just like a slap on the wrist. It's fine. And I think the beauty of a show like Steven Universe shows that you learn from those mistakes and move forward. And if something similar happens again, it's in different circumstances and they remember from before. Like in this episode, for the most part, like Steven remembers, oh, you know what? This is kind of similar to how I was acting this time, and this hurt this person's feelings. I need to react different. Or in the opposite of like Steven growing up and seeing another character acting that way and remembering when he felt that same way and thinks, oh, if there had been someone to be with me to explain this to me, then it would have been better. And then he explains to the character like, hey, I know you're upset, I know you're hurt, but you know, we need to deal with it this way, or you can just tell me how you feel instead of acting this way. And I think that's so much better, like as a way to teach kids. And you know, kids are our future. It matters. Even if I don't have kids, when I do, they're going to be watching Steven Universe, so that's for sure.
I love it. Or you're going to be making shows like Steven Universe, maybe.
Maybe. But yeah, I think that that's really important. And I've always cared about things like what goes into kids' hands, what goes in front of their faces, you know.
No, totally, 100%. So you were telling us that like this has been giving you a ton of joy, and you've also been doing a ton of crying and everything else. Okay, so I want to know more. You gonna give me more?
Yeah, of course. I'll tell you more.
All right. So let's talk about a character in the show that you love.
Ooh, okay.
Which one?
There is, I mean, Steven is, you know, the titular character, and I always fall in love with the main protagonist of the show. But I feel like there's a character that I didn't like at first when I started watching the show. Like, I think I said out loud to Mac, this is my least favorite character. But by the end, I think they have the best character arc. Well, one of the best character arcs in the show. And their name is Pearl. It's one of the characters that's kind of was friends with Steven's mom and was entrusted with kind of teaching Steven how to be a gem and fighting and stuff. But there's this character Pearl who is just very bossy and very, you know, type A, like, character, always needs things to be done in a certain way and doesn't like when things are messy or whatever. And there's an episode where Steven's friend Connie, who by the way is 12 and a half years old and Steven's 14, but Connie decides that she wants to learn how to fight because she wants to be able to be an active participant in the fighting with Steven. She doesn't ever want to feel like she isn't a part of isn't going to be able to help. Like, she wants to be able to help and be a part of things. And so she wants to learn how to fight. And so they go to Pearl to teach her how to fight. And the backstory of Pearl is that she was never made to be a fighter. She was never made to be a part of things like that. She was kind of made to be basically like an assistant of sorts. And so she had to learn how to fight on her own. So when she's teaching Connie, and the show is also very like musical, like there's musical numbers in it. So of course I love it. But in the show, there's this scene where she's teaching Connie how to fight, and they're singing this song where you kind of realize that Pearl was in love with Steven's mom, like would have done anything for his mom, would have given anything for his mom. And in that song kind of instills this idea onto Connie of like, you should do anything for Steven, even if that means sacrificing your own life, which is heavy stuff to tell a 12-year-old. So of course she's like, yeah, I'll do anything. I'll give up my human life because it's small and insignificant in comparison to like Steven's life, which is going to go on for thousands of years, and like he's so important and yada yada, and I'm nothing. And she like teaches this to Connie, and Steven's kind of like, what? No. Don't do that. And realizes that this is how Pearl feels, is that she needs to sacrifice herself in order to be able to help Steven, be able to help who she used to help, which is Steven's mom. And it just like kind of clicks like as an audience member for me that she's a little bit more complicated. She has more layers to her than just being this type A bossy kind of snooze fest character. And I really liked that the show gave her that depth, and over time she grows more and more into realizing that she does matter, that she has more to give than just to be, used. You know what I mean? And I think that that's such a good thing to teach kids. It's so brilliant. And it's not as if this is a concept that's going to go over kids' heads or anything like that, like maybe more of the complex parts of it. But I think it's a good lesson to teach kids, because it's like she's teaching a 12-year-old how to do that. And Steven goes, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, we all matter here. We all are worthy of, like, existing and of not just like throwing away our lives for someone. Like, life is more complicated than that, and it's really good. I enjoy that about it.
That's really good. Any other characters like beyond the scope of what you just told us?
Yeah, there's there's so many characters in the show, but
should we not pull up and show everybody?
Yeah, you should show Pearl, because she kind of looks like one of those characters that you're like, oh yeah, I don't love her.
Here we go. This looks like a whole cast and crew here.
That's a lot of cast members in that.
Yeah, well, look at all of these cast members. Let's see. Here we go.
Yeah, so Pearl's standing, Steven's front and center, and Pearl's kind of standing behind him to his left. She's got like this orange hair that comes to a point, and she's a little bit taller, very thin. She comes a long way. This is a picture from kind of this second show. So Steven Universe has Steven Universe as the first show, and that's 5 seasons of a show. And then they had this movie that goes into more detail about his mom's past. And then there's another show that's just one singular season, and this picture is from that second show.
Amazing. Steven's not afraid of the spotlight, is he?
No. But it's funny, I was talking to Mac about it yesterday, and because we were watching it yesterday. I'm not finished with this final season of the show, or this other show of the second show of the show. But we were watching it, and Mac told me the entire time that we were watching the original show that it's cute and happy or whatever. And Mac was like, it just kind of gets like a little bit more and more and more complex as the seasons go on. And I was like, but Steven's going to be okay, right? Like nobody dies or anything. And he goes, nobody dies. But I mean, I don't know if Steven's okay. I was like, well, what does that mean?
Spoiler alert, maybe.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Steven just kind of gets like, there's just so much more and more weight that's put onto Steven over the course of the show. More and more realizations about his mom's past and things that have happened and all that sort of thing. And he just kind of, by the time it's, Steven Universe Future, which is the second show, it's really just, Steven needs some therapy, I think is what that second show is telling us, is that Steven just needs some therapy and some emotional support because he's been through a lot.
Some therapy.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that a lot of the cast members in the show, and there's not very many child parent situations because Steven's mom is gone because she had to be so that he could exist, but he does have a dad who's human and does such a good job of being like kind of a laid back dad, but also shows how to just love your son, like just love your kids. He's not very much a disciplinarian in any sort of way, which is, because of the circumstances, probably best for Steven and not best for human children. But he just shows how to love and care about your kids in a way that is so genuine and so special and makes him one of the most lovable characters in the show.
That's great. That's fun.
Yeah.
I love that you told us about this. Yeah, so good living and a lot going on for you. If people want to follow along on your journey, stay in touch, how do they do that?
There's all sorts of ways. You can follow any of the social media pages where I post pictures and things like that from my everyday. And links to that are on the website, which is the-mariah-effect.com. And on there we have all sorts of links to, show notes, so you can read a little bit more about the episodes, any resources that we might have on it, on there. And then there's also a link to the Patreon so that you can join that and be able to talk to all sorts of people about, you could talk about me, you could talk about what I was talking about on the show, like maybe you've already seen Steven Universe and you want to talk to some other people and get them hyped for the show even more than I did during this episode or whatever. Or if you want to see bonus content of me and Jason just kind of talking to each other about nothing, and everything, then that's on there too. I also do a blog on there, which I update as often as I can, and that goes into more detail about, my inner thoughts about what I'm thinking about or what I'm doing that week or what I did or anything like that. So if you want to know more, that's the place to go for it.
And Mariah is a really good writer, just FYI.
Those blog posts are definitely a unedited, uncut version of my writing, but I'll figure out how to get more better, more finalized versions of writings and poetry and stuff out there. I'm working on it.
And Mariah is also a perfectionist.
Absolutely. Overthinker to the max.
Well, don't overthink this one. I think you should take us home for wrapping up the show.
Absolutely. I just want everybody out there to, try their best in everything that they're doing. I mean, if you have kids and you're looking for shows to show them to, teach them more things about relationships and things like that, just being kind to people in your life, giving people second chances, stuff like that, then Steven Universe is definitely a really good show to show them, and is a show that you could watch yourself and not find yourself going, when is this show for my kid going to be over so that I can get back to something for adults? It's definitely a show that doesn't give you those thoughts. So I hope everybody has a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
I love you.
I love you too.
Mwah. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.
See ya. Bye.